Evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Westford Public Schools School Committee meeting for Monday, March 9th. This meeting is being recorded, and if you're able, please join us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. We're going to start with the consent agenda, which is a set of minutes from February 23rd. No, we didn't meet then, so that is, there's nothing on our consent agenda then. Sanity check, looking around, that sounds right.
Minutes.
Oh,
be
they're
from February
sorry,
9th.
February 9th, thank you.
Yeah, they just they need an edit.
I did
that's
look
all.
at some minutes.
Okay. Any feedback on February 9th minutes? Or motions?
Motion to approve the minutes from February 9th.
Second.
Bill and Shayna, okay? All in favor? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, so Jeff abstained, thank you. So it's 5-1. Okay. Next, we'll move on to public comment. We didn't go live on Zoom. So there we go. Maybe we should start the call. No, we can just go live now?
We can go
Yeah,
right in.
you can just
Go
go live now.
Go
All
right
right.
in.
We'll go live now. Give a minute for anybody watching. Appreciate any and all sanity checks tonight.
We'll keep you on
Moving
track.
forward.
Yeah.
I don't see any attendees, so, okay, good. So we'll move on to public comment. A reminder that public comment for any item or topic on or off the agenda is always available near the top of the agenda for individuals to share their thoughts. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Please use public comment even if you refer to something later on the agenda. Virtual public comment is available through Zoom or in person at the microphone. And since we have no attendees in either spot, we will move on. So we'll start with student representatives' informational update.
There's lots happening. We're in a break between winter and spring sports right now, but all of our winter sports had a very successful season. I know the boys swim team placed first in a lot of events at their state championship, and the girls basketball team was in the round of 16. And then the theater department moved on from the preliminary round of the METG festival, so we'll be competing in the semifinal round with chamber music this Saturday in Weymouth. There's also a performance on Thursday, which because of the snow will be our first home performance. And there was an in-school performance today, which was very well attended. And then Stuco will be hosting the Polar Plunge to raise money for the Special Olympics tomorrow, so a lot of people will be participating in that and jumping in a bin of water.
In 70-degree.
Yeah.
The
I was gonna
best
say,
condition
if you were ever on the
possible.
fence, tomorrow's the day for your polar plunge.
Are they emptying the snow from the parking lot into the bin first? Is that how we're making it?
That's great. And that performance on Thursday is 8 p.m., right?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go on to superintendent and assistant superintendent updates.
We'd like to congratulate Kate Kelly and Grace Sue, two Westford Academy seniors. You received the email as well, too. They were named 2 of the top high school journalists in New England. That was by the New England Scholastic Press Association. Kate was also named the Massachusetts High School Journalist of the Year. And both Kelly, Kate, and Grace will be among 17 members of the all New England high school journalism staff. Now, the other interesting piece is that Kate is now the second person 2 years in a row Westford Academy has had the top high school journalist of the year. So congratulations specifically to them, but also to Ms. Fondon and Mr. Holbrook, who we know as the advisors just do an incredible job guiding them, supporting them. And so we congratulate all of the journalists that we have, but specifically a special congrats to Kate and Grace for this outstanding accomplishment. I want to thank everybody who participated in the Thought Exchange survey. We closed it this weekend. We had 664 people participate. 60% of that was families. We had a significant amount of staff participate. We had students participate. We had community members participate. The overall information, I'm going to share some of that data with you when I bring the draft strategic district improvement plan to you. But one of the things that I thought was great is that it does, it tracks how many different comments people react to. And when we talked with our contacts at Thought Exchange, we had 32 interactions was the average, and they were honestly out of their minds as to how great that was. They said normally it's like 10 to 20, but the fact that we had 32, that was the average, it just showed how engaged people were, that they were really taking the time to read extra comments and to rate them. And all of the feedback that we're receiving so far is positive, that this was an interesting way to not only provide their own feedback, but to then to engage with other people's ideas as well too. The platform does a lot of great things in looking at the data. It'll show us the different the common grounds that will exist, because the best example probably, and was the thing that did surprise me initially when we started these conversations a couple months ago, was we have people who were pretty adamant that we're using too much technology, and then people who are pretty adamant that we need to be integrating more technology. That was one of the things that jumped out. But then it talks about the common ground that exists between the people who are saying those things, and that across the board, balanced, thoughtful integration is what people are looking for, which I thought was great. So I'm going to share data with you, different types of things along those lines. The main topics that showed up was technology impact, mental health, class sizes and resources, academic pressures. There were a lot of comments about academic pressures, and social skills and inclusion, and really making sure that we are focusing on helping students to develop the skills that they need to be resilient for their futures, which I think was helpful. So I just want to thank everybody for that. We are going to be adding the survey. The town is doing an attendance survey, trying to get an idea as to how many people are planning to come to town meeting, which is taking place at the end of the month. So we're going to also include that in our weekly billboard, and I'm going to ask the principals to send that out in their weekly emails to families as well too, just so people can keep their eyes open for that. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, as I go and visit the schools, I'm always seeing great things. Last Friday, I went to Crisafulli, and they were having their closing ceremonies for their Winter Olympics. Finally, they had a number of delays because of the different weather-related delays that we had, and so they had a school-wide closing ceremony that took place Friday afternoon, and it was phenomenal. The staff did an amazing job really creating this week-long event in the first place, where they were focusing on the goals of the Olympics, and they managed to introduce some really fun new sports to the students, but they also took it across the school. So they had buddy reading across grades, and all of the teams were organized as cross-grade. The teams were cross grades, right? So I just think it was, the students were so enthusiastic. The staff really, I think, hit it out of the park, trying to create this thing that also exhibited their core values of spirit, which is what we have in the district. So I just want to congratulate them and thank them for inviting me. It was fantastic.
That's cool. Great. Anything, Courtney? School committee updates. Anybody?
Lori and I met earlier this evening with the Student Advisory Committee from Westford Academy. If you guys will recall, earlier this year, we were in this the situation where we had to ask another representative of the sophomore class to join the Student Advisory Committee because no one ran from the freshman class. So I think that led to discussions within the committee here about one, how do we reasonably recruit students to want to take on a position with us within the advisory committee, and then also how do we recruit, try to begin the recruitment for students to engage in civic government at WA in the middle schools. So we had a really good, robust discussion with our student advisory members this evening. And we've got ideas to bring back to the policy subcommittee. We've got ideas to discuss with the administration from the middle schools and from WA, so.
Yeah,
so
we're
good.
hoping these discussions will inform the staff policy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And if anyone else on the committee has ideas, we could funnel them through you, Lori, maybe, because you overlap with
Yes.
STAC and
Mhm.
policy. Okay,
Definitely.
cool. Any other school committee updates? I have a couple, just for school committee stuff, we have a finance subcommittee meeting on this Friday morning. I'm also going to announce there's a Neurodiversity Celebration Week Community Lego Building event at First Parish. That's the Friday, March 20th from 2 to 5 p.m. That's hosted by the New England Lego Users Group, CPAC, and the Commission on Disability. I've been in the past. It's a lot of fun. Did I say 2 to 5? I think so.
You did
Okay.
now.
Cool. All right. And then I had a couple reminders about annual town meeting. Saturday, March 28th at WA, start time of 9 a.m., check-in 8 a.m. The childcare sign-up is due by March 20th. There's the website, there's the survey about attendance on the town website. A reminder for any of our high schoolers who may be turning 18 that the registration to vote deadline is March 18th. And as in the past, lunch will be provided in the cafeteria, or feel free to bring a bagged lunch. And,
Roots Roasters will be there in the morning as well, too.
okay,
Yeah,
Roots Roasters
will be there for people if they want to buy a cup of coffee.
with cash,
Yes.
with cash.
Awesome.
And
Yes.
in the morning. And then also mark your calendars for the League of Women Voters Annual Town Meeting Preview. That's a virtual event on March 19th, I believe, 7 p.m. All this information is on the town website under Town Meeting and/or Town Moderator. Highly recommend that. And I'm a little conflicted to announce the next pay-as-you-throw session, just because it is at the same time as our school committee meeting. But it's Monday, March 23rd at Stony Brook. Actually, it starts at 6 p.m., so it's possible you could just get a double dose of civic engagement that day. And that is hybrid, if you're interested in participating from home. And that information is on the town website, too. I don't think I missed anything. We're good? Sanity check? Great, okay, we're moving on to our first order of business tonight. We're gonna welcome up Assistant Town Manager Mike Edwards to walk us through 2 articles on the annual town meeting warrant that the committee can talk about, learn more about, and consider taking a position.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate everybody's time this evening. I'm Mike Edwards, the Assistant Town Manager for Strategic Operations. It's a bit of a mouthful, but Kristen loves the long titles. So we're here again, as Valerie mentioned, to request support and to give you an overview on 2 articles that impact the schools. First being Article 4, and this is an appropriation from free cash of $30,000 to fund energy efficiency projects. It is intentionally vague, the way that we have it, because what we have found over the last couple of years in being very aggressive on our energy efficiency projects is a lot of these short-term grants and rebates come with a very short fuse, and we have to be able to move relatively quickly. So essentially this gives me a little bit of a kitty to dip into for unanticipated opportunities. We've used it to provide some matches this past year for some different grant opportunities, and we're also using it to fund a professional services agreement with Beacon Integrated Solutions, who's assisting us with negotiating the Blanchard PPA for the solar project, as well as doing the overall performance contract with Amoresco on our behalf. So it's been money well spent. We're really hoping that we can allow this to continue as an annual appropriation and just have a little bit extra so that we can go after these things when they come up, because in some cases we've got weeks to work to get something together, and local government typically doesn't move that fast, so having an appropriation set aside is very beneficial. Any questions on that one?
I just wanted, could you explain how you picked the number?
Well, we actually, it was kind of picked by default. When we did this a few years ago, or when we started this last year, we actually had 2 rebates that were paid directly to the town, and they added up to $170,000, so we put it in for just an even 2 and carried the 30 over. And we've actually found that to be a pretty good amount. The rebates came to the town, and then we had to reappropriate them out to pay the vendor.
Okay.
We figured out a better way to do that since then, so we don't have a transaction. But the amount proved to be sufficient for what we feel we need on an annual basis.
Because in the memo, you're talking about $180,000 out of pocket and for an extraordinary amount of investment. But I guess I just saw the 180 and thought only 30.
No, the 180 is actually, that kind of carries over from 2024. That was our match on one project, as
Oh,
well as
okay.
our match on Green Communities projects.
Okay.
Just about everything that we have done since starting this new strategy, I want to say we're almost total of 97,000 out of pocket over 18 months for about 3.7 million worth of work.
97,000 out of pocket?
Yeah,
Wow.
we've been very aggressive.
Any other questions there?
Just, and this is maybe a different conversation. How are we allocating like the savings? Or is it really?
Well, the savings kind of work in a couple different ways. So the way that we have structured the majority of the projects that we've done over the last 12 months or so is we're actually using net metering credit balances. We had a significant credit balance sitting in a lot of those National Grid accounts to finance portions of the project. The rest of the project has either been paid through Green Communities grants, it's been paid through incentive programs. Typically about 40 to 50% of the project cost gets covered through incentives. We're really targeting promotional incentives that are a little higher than the prescriptive incentives. And then the remainder of it, we've been putting on what they call on-bill repayment, which is a 0% financing plan that goes through National Grid. It is an incentive because they subsidize the interest through the Mass Save program. And so those are used basically they hit the bill. So the savings that we get essentially is paying the short-term principal repayment. We try to hedge a little bit on the low side. So we like to see around 80% that we estimate the savings much lower than they are. So the hope is that we come out cash flow positive even after that, and if it hits a worst case scenario, still cash flow positive. But those savings, for the most part, where we're using this OBR program, we're not going to really see the bulk of those until about 4 years after the project's completed. So it's a longer term, medium-term investment.
Okay, I'm just hoping that we'll see it both on town and school side in the budgeting.
Oh, no, it's the
eventually, right?
vast
So-
majority of it's on the school side.
Right, like it's not like a credit, right? But
Right,
then
no,
we
but
have
it's-
we get to allocate less money to
Yes.
energy costs and put that money somewhere else.
Yes,
Is that fair?
Yeah.
that's what I'm.
And it's a little tough to kind of model those things out because, we've got a high degree of seasonality with the net metering credits. So we see, as Jenny knows, with the power bills lately, we'll see some fluctuations in those. And then, we've had 2 abnormally cold years. So that impacts things. So, and then on top of that, the National Grid's delivery charges have increased substantially, as everybody who pays their bills knows. We don't see any of those savings.
Right.
So we do have a number of ways that we hedge our actual really our electrical costs, and primarily that's through the off-site solar agreements that we have. So.
Great. Okay, do you want to talk about
Yeah.
Article 6?
So Article 6 is a little bit, it sounds very complex, but it's actually really straightforward. So this is authorization for the town to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, a pilot agreement with, it's Amoresco, but it's actually going to be their subsidiary LLC. I think it's called Blanchard Solar LLC. So as you know from the past town meeting in the fall, we approved the negotiation and execution of a power purchase agreement for a solar array on Blanchard. Because that is a power purchase agreement, effectively, the company that installs it owns those assets, and those assets are going on town property. Therefore, they're subject to, well, just by virtue of them being assets that a company owns in town, they're subject to personal property tax. So because it's on our property, we can arrange for a pilot so that they don't have to pay the full amount of property tax, because all that would do is increase the amount that they're charging us to put this unit on our roof. So essentially, we will negotiate really a token amount, probably based on previous ones I've seen, anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 a year. That will be the payment in lieu of taxes, and then they will build that same amount into the rate that we pay. It's fractions of a penny. So it's a in one pocket, right out the other transaction. So it's, like I said, it's the net impact is zero, and the benefit of doing it this way is really the transaction is kept very, very small by being a pilot, as opposed to being property tax, where they then add potentially a penny to the rate that we pay.
Great. Any questions there? I'm going to pause there, since that's what's called out on our agenda. And if there are any other clarifying questions, certainly, or discussion, we can decide as a committee to take a position on these articles and their relation to schools and our lane. If we do that tonight, I believe it gets printed in the motions booklet. We could certainly always decide to take a position at our next meeting, and then we probably missed that cutoff for publication.
Valerie, you probably still would make that cutoff, but
Okay.
If you didn't feel
Okay.
comfortable taking a position tonight.
And, so open to discussion on how people feel about that. I think in the past, we try to stay in our lane, and so these relate to schools, and if we want to take a position, we certainly could, the majority of the committee. I get a feel for how people,
I'm leaning towards not necessarily taking a position, just because they're not a direct school policy, and not a direct impact to schools. I can't imagine that the pilot would be allocated directly to schools. But that would be, these seem more of the financial nature to me, but.
yeah,
I think I would argue the opposite. I think it's really important that we take a position on this just to help these measures. I think I've been so impressed by the work that Mike and his team have done to find these cost savings and grants, and a number of them have benefited the schools with some of the work that's been done to, I don't know what the right term is, but, weatherize the buildings and save costs that way. So I think I very much appreciate those efforts and would like to, take a stand on those.
anybody else have strong feelings?
I mean, in the effort of getting communication out to the town residents, and, that the school committee and our meetings are a vehicle for that, I think it's important that we take a stance on measures that directly affect our buildings and our properties, so I would be in favor of it.
It brings up the question of whether the school buildings are town buildings or school buildings. That's the only thing I can think of.
I mean, I think we took a position on the actual roof article. I don't think, I tried to go back and check, I don't think we took a position on the addition of the solar system for the roof. But maybe, it's not that we chose not to take a position, I just don't think it came to us in time or kind of crossed our radar. I think my personal feeling is sort of that I can see how this is kind of neutral as far as like our lane or our purview, but if the net positive in showing some alignment with our town partners helps provide like a united front to town meeting, and we know that we are benefiting sort of tangentially from this, then I'm happy to support taking a position. Did you have any feelings, Sheena?
I don't have any strong feelings either way. I'm totally fine doing it. I think I was gonna just, what's the precedent? If we've done it before, then we should do it again. I think, agree, it does touch our buildings and hopefully our finances
that's it.
in ways, right? That's giving us more money to put to other things.
Yeah, and, I mean, you could argue our current STIP Initiative 4 is increased sustainability, so. That's true.
Yep. I mean, there's just so much discussion about the financials these days in Westford that I think, we're a big part of that. And, I think the town looks to us for our leadership, so.
Does anybody feel compelled to make a motion? It would not be to approve, it's a motion to recommend approval.
Motion for the school committee to make recommendations in favor of Article 4 and 6 for this year's town meeting.
Second.
That's Bill and Jess. Any final thoughts? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Oh, that was everybody. Okay. Great. And was there anything else you wanted to add about town meeting?
Yeah, I did want to just give an opportunity to have you guys give you really an overview of another article that we have on the warrant and kind of talk about how it would impact the schools. But I think a good segue into that would be to follow up on a comment that Lori made. So on the town side, we try not to separate the town and schools. I look at every one of these assets that are under our purview as equal, and we really do want to put an enormous amount of effort into taking care of these buildings. We have really tried to spread our facilities operation across both sides. We're working right now to take that capital plan that we just did for the town side and really marry it to what you guys did with the SMMA work a few years back, and come up with really a comprehensive way to address all of these assets that are under our care. So I think it is helpful when you do support things like this, because we look at them as supporting the entire town portfolio of assets. And obviously the schools are just a huge piece of that, both in terms of dollars and square footage and the level of effort that our facilities people put into them. So I think that kind of blends itself well with the other article that we have, which is for a proposal for a new position for an operations analyst. And I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of commentary, a lot of information that we have put out, information that's been on social media, et cetera. I wanted to talk about this one really in terms of where I see it benefiting our facilities operation and some of our most major cost centers, those being our trash and recycling operations, but in particular the energy. And also how we see it being able to support some things that this body has participated in the past, specifically around the budget task force and the recommendations that came out of that. The operations analyst it's not a town finance position. It is a support position really to provide some very sorely needed analytical capacity that we do not have in the organization. When the Proposition 2.5 override was rejected by voters, we kind of took that as a mandate to make it work. What also happened at that time is we lost our sustainability coordinator that had some responsibilities around energy and trash, and we lost a part-time financial analyst in our finance department. Since that time, basically all of our basic financial analysis, and we're talking, down to the basics, data entry, things like that, have been done by myself and by our finance director. That's a huge waste of our time at our level. And what we have found is that while we have been very, very fortunate and very aggressive on a lot of the projects we have done around energy, that we're leaving a lot on the table. We're leaving a lot of grants on the table. We are leaving a lot of savings on the table. And quite frankly, the $3.7 million number, a lot of that was low-hanging fruit. We're going to have to dig a lot harder to find a lot more things. And what our next phase of our plan is really to start moving very, very deeply into the recommendations of the Budget Task Force. That had a lot of great information and a lot of good recommendations. We don't have really the the organizational capacity to dig down and figure out how all of those recommendations work and how we implement them. And that is really where this operations analyst comes in. So about half of the time we anticipate on the front end of this position would be in administering and kind of coordinating the aspects of the pay-as-you-throw program, which is, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on that program, but it's needed. We need the revenue. We need to really start corralling those costs. The rest of the time, we are looking at this position to do two things primarily. One is going to be doing a much more in-depth tracking, coordination, and monitoring of all of our energy accounts. That's our second biggest cost center we've got across all town and school facilities. And to be frank, we really don't have a good handle on where those projections are going, especially with all the different variables associated with them. We have a huge asset sitting out there in terms of these net metering credits, but it's very complex the way they work, and to be honest, we're not comfortable using those any more than we already have until we have a very good idea about how they will behave moving into the future, as well as how all our current buildings will behave, especially with all the work we've done recently. So that's going to be a really big focus of what this position does, which is a direct benefit to the schools, is really helping me build the financial data sets that let us make decisions on our next round of investments. The other roughly a quarter of what this position will do is a lot of little miscellaneous things that we need some assistance with. Surplus sales, better managing our insurance portfolio, but also largely freeing up my time and freeing up Dan O'Donnell's time so that we can really assist Jeff Goodwin and build out this capital plan so that we have close to $9 million worth of deferred maintenance just on the town side. The school side, it's in the tens of millions. We don't have the funds to pay for those things. And if we are going to be seeking funding in the future for these, be it through debt exclusions or otherwise, we are going to have to be very careful with how we phase these things and sequence them out over time so we can really line them up with our current debt amortization and also think about how they are presented to the town over time. I think what we want to avoid more than anything is looking at any major capital decisions without thinking about what the next 10 are going to be. And I think we've gotten ourselves into a little bit of trouble doing that so far, and we have to get out of that cycle. So in order to have the capacity to really build a good capital plan, we have got to be able to take some of our senior leadership and put them towards that task. And if we're spending all of our time doing routine work, we're not going to be able to do that. The other big thing that we do intend to look at is a major recommendation that came out of the Budget Task Force, and that's to do regular fee reviews. As part of our strategic planning process that the town went through, one of the core things that we identified that we have to do on the town side is we really have to identify what our core services are. And we have to think about those core services as being the primary services that are funded through the levy. There are a lot of other services that are, I'm not going to say luxury type things, but there are things that may be more appropriate to look at from a fee perspective. Garbage being one of them. Recreation stuff, which is already in an enterprise fund. There are a number of other different services that we're either, in the current budget environment in a few years, we're either not going to be able to provide them at all, or we are going to have to figure out how to shift them over to a fee-for-service basis. So that kind of high-level strategic planning piece is really the core of my job, which is figure out what the core stuff is and figure out what is not, and try to figure out different ways that we can approach the funding. But within that core piece, those are going to be our public safety services, our DPW services, our education. We have got to do some things to start really thinking about the way our general fund funds our operations. And so that fee review is a real key piece of this operations analyst. Not that they will be doing it, they will be doing some of the underlying data collection and data work for it, but ultimately this is something that needs to fall on myself and the finance director. So without going into a huge amount of information as far as the pay-as-you-throw piece, et cetera, I just wanted to give you that perspective and kind of understand how we see this position fitting in the bigger picture and really trying to operationalize some of the strategic plans that we have out there and really go back into that budget task force report, dust that thing off, and start actually making some of those things happen. So with that, I'd open up to any questions that you might have.
I'd love, since Mike is here, I'd love for anyone that has a quick couple clarifying questions. I want to keep it bounded since it's not really on the agenda to deliberate or take a position on. If you feel strongly that that this should be on a future agenda or a quick agenda before town meeting for us to take a position on, what was it, article?
11?
18, 11?
Okay.
I'll tell you in a second.
TBD. Please let Catherine know as chair. And, but if there's any quick clarifying questions while we have Mike, happy to entertain those for a few minutes. Does anybody, without delving too much into a pay-as-you-throw discussion?
Can you just tell me, again, you started saying it, but I think I missed the first. What % of the time you expect them to be working on the pay-as-you-throw?
I expect, just given the challenges of implementation, that a roughly half of their first year is probably going to be spent dealing with that. The other piece of the pay-as-you-throw is we are going to have to significantly expand our recycling programs, and we've had a number of conversations with the Recycling Commission. They're volunteer. They're at their limit right now. We're not going to be able to do any more than they do right now, and they do a great job without some additional dedicated staff support, if for no other reason than just to kind of do the back office organization, insurance, contracts, things like that to assist them and let them kind of do their thing. So within that pay-as-you-throw 50%, I kind of lump in significant efforts on recycling as well.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I would say where it's like 50% on something completely unrelated to our purview, I wouldn't feel strongly about taking an opinion at a future meeting unless, I wouldn't necessarily not do it if other people felt differently, but I feel like if it's over-ish half, or that is kind of like half the job will impact maybe finding cost savings and things along those lines, but half the job kind of is out of our, although of course revenue means money in other places, right? So.
Well, and I would add this too, and I think it's important to realize, I mean, the school's trash service is provided by the town, and you won't be involved in the pay-as-you-throw piece, but the one thing that is going to happen on the school side, and I shared this with Valerie, I've been talking with Christina Green about this, I think the schools are going to be facing some significant challenges on waste disposal over the next couple of years. So part of Mass DEP's 30-year waste reduction plan, they have a 30% target of waste reduction by 2030. There's two ways they're really doing that. One is through really heavily incentivizing pay-as-you-throw programs. The second is by waste bans. So we saw that with textiles, we've seen that with mattresses. Food is coming next, and they have on the books now a waste ban that is unenforced that hits institutional waste generators, requiring them to no longer place food in their trash. The schools are going to need to expect sometime probably in 2027 to see that ban be enforced, which means we'll see trucks turned away, which means we're going to have some significant costs. One of the things that this position is going to be doing as part of the recycling piece is really starting to look at how do we have some larger scale food waste diversion programs, primarily starting with the schools, because I think you're going to wind up being forced to not place the food waste from all of your cafeterias and food operations in dumpsters. I've gone through the Mass DEP meeting minutes. It's coming, and it's going to be a transition. So we do anticipate that you will need some help with that and making those policy changes, making those operational changes. We've already been talking about them with facilities, how we would start that, but I do think you're going to see more of the trash realm start impacting the school over the next year or so. So just wanted to throw that out there so you're aware.
We'll be teaching our kiddos some new buckets in which to throw their items into. It's going to get real.
These are the rules the state's
I know.
pushing on us, so I don't think we're going to be able to ignore them.
It's needed, yeah.
I mean, I just want to be cautious. I think the memos for the other things were in the packet.
Yeah.
There's definitely plenty of info. I sent you all the description of the job responsibilities for the operations analyst. I think it's probably a better tactic to take some time and let it marinate, and then feed that feedback one-on-one to Catherine, and then she can look at the whole committee and say whether she got overwhelming feedback to bring it back or not. And that would keep us on track, yeah.
If I could also add, if anybody has questions,
Yeah.
I will sit down and talk with anybody. And I think if given the time and kind of walking through the numbers and walking through the different things we're looking at, I'm not going to say it's a no-brainer, it's a tough decision, but I think if we want to position ourselves to bring back some of the positions that were lost when the override was not successful, I think we are going to have to make some investment in our financial foundation.
Well, and I've said for a long time that my experience in municipal is, you ask someone why we do something, and it's, well, we've done it that way for 50 years. That's the way I was trained to do it. So having someone come in, potentially from outside, saying, well, okay, ask that question again, even if it's having some of those conversations, I think that's a valuable thing. And we might very well find some efficiencies that we're doing double data entry, we might be doing, triple data entry in places, or making, 4 copies of something and storing that and having to pay for storage space. And so I do think there is some value and if there's success on the town side, that person might be able to come over and have a conversation with Dr. True too, and in the business office, and so I think there might be some shared benefit that way eventually too.
I mean, it's 70+% of our budget, so we have a very strong interest in seeing the school side have whatever support they need to get
Long-term
these things
capital,
to.
we talk about the Robinson School Building Committee, and I think Valerie's going to provide an update later. I mean, there's so much coming down the road here, so.
That's the piece that I'm excited about, being able to really dedicate time to a capital plan. I think I had heard about this position on Facebook, sort of described as, oh, somebody's gonna weigh our trash, we don't need to pay for that, but
They're not weighing
it's,
trash.
I mean, just so you know, that's the impression
Yeah.
out there. But I think that, the other half of that time, being able to help you dedicate to, that capital planning is just so critical.
Okay, great. And then Mike's going to stay put to answer any questions as we move to the next business item, which was the late addition to our agenda. I think the intro here is that we are in the running for an earmark from through Lori Trahan's office for community project funding to cover the $950,000 for the Pleasant Street Patton Road sidewalk project. I do have a map, if anyone's curious. It's basically from like the senior center down Pleasant Street, and then that little curve into Patton Road. So it
Towards
doesn't
WA.
go to WA, but there is, I
Yeah.
think, an existing
It
sidewalk
connects
right around
existing
that.
sidewalks to
There's like a
WA.
cul-de-sac.
Pathways.
Rooks-
Yeah.
There's like a
So-
cul-de-sac there, Rooks
Goes through the
Way.
woods.
Yeah.
And the sidewalk would go to Rooks Way, and then, so
Yeah.
this one is in our lane as far as safe routes to
Student safety.
school, pedestrian access
Yep.
to WA. The ask is to sign on to a letter of support, which helps bolster our, the likelihood that the project gets picked. I sent you some draft wording. Would love, if there's interest in taking a position on this, would love some sort of editorial, like, the intent of the letter is good, but
Yeah.
Catherine hasn't had a chance to read through this and, maybe personalize it here and there. So would ask for that willingness. Did I miss anything?
No, I would say you captured it. I do apologize for the hastiness of this. The way these federal appropriations work is we basically find out about 6 days before that they're even asking. And I think they do that for 2 reasons. One is just to make it extremely difficult to get them, but 2, for the local district office to be able to weed out who's not serious and can't get their act together fast enough to put a bunch of letters and a compelling application together. We made the cut last time. We got a little over $1 million on the FY26 appropriation for PFAS treatment plants for the water department. We put in 2 projects this year. One, what was the other one? I believe it was a water project as well, well development. And then this one, they felt this one had a better chance, so we are on her list of projects that is going. We had a very strong application last time. I'd like to repeat it and have as many different letters and letterheads as possible to make this one favorable, so.
And just to be clear, that would be ideally taking that funding off of capital.
It's on the warrant right now with a recommendation for dismissal. We were
Oh.
not quite there with the estimates, so we
Okay.
recommended that they pull it, and they've pulled it. It would be back when the estimates were a little bit more dialed in.
Okay.
But we have design funding in place. We're finalizing everything. We just didn't feel 100% comfortable bringing it, but we certainly feel comfortable enough to ask for some federal funding for it.
So it would again.
It'll be competing
free
with
up
school
some-
stuff
Some
later.
other resources for other projects
100%.
along the way, and along with that deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
Although there is a chance that it wouldn't be selected to
Right.
be done in town
Right.
meeting. Okay.
I would say there's obviously a chance it would not be selected. It's got to go through, I mean, the last round took almost a year and took quite a while. And then by the time we got it, it had been shaved down by about 30–40%. With this one, we picked this project in particular because it did have some scalability. So if we're unable to get the full amount, we can either fund it, the balance ourselves, or we can do less of it. I mean, it's a sidewalk, so we can make it shorter. But generally speaking, I think we stand a decent chance. Representative Tran, she's been very successful in pushing through these things, and we're hopeful that we can be part of it.
And I assume that the call that went out for applications is somewhat such that this fits very specifically into that. I guess what I'm trying to understand is should we be asking for something else, or is this the thing that fits best?
We looked through pretty much they give a list of about 6 different appropriation subcommittees and the grant programs that they have available. There was really not much that was outside of economic development or infrastructure type projects that we felt we had something shovel ready we could push forward. Because these do work in such a way that, if they turn around and say, here's your money, you need to start drawing it down, we got to be ready to draw it down.
So it usually comes with
Yeah.
deadlines that are almost impossible to meet.
And you have to be able to move fast or it's subject to clawback. So we don't want that either.
And if it was granted at the $950,000, that could conceivably pay for the entire project, or we could just do the project up to that amount of money and not finish it. So it could not necessarily have to go to town meeting for additional money. It might
It
have to get
depends.
approved anyway, but.
Well, I mean, I think with anything construction related, we see anywhere from 3 to 7% increase on material costs and labor costs every year. So the longer it takes, the more it's going to cost. The hope is that if we got an amount close to that, which I think is not super likely that we would probably get something cut down. If we got something close to that, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
And just to clarify, I think that it's definitely not on this March's town meeting.
It's not
Correct.
Well, it's being recommended for dismissal.
Correct,
So
sorry.
who knows what can happen
It's
at
not
town
being
meeting.
supported, sure.
Yeah, everybody is recommended
Yeah, yeah.
unanimously to not do it.
Dismiss.
So,
It's agreed that it's not ready for annual town meeting in March, but the project is still a priority and would then come back.
Yes, and my guess, just based on the timing of the last one, I mean, we just found out probably 4 weeks ago that we got the FY26 appropriation. So I would expect around, January, February of next year, we'll know for sure. Every time we would have communications from the office, it was, well, it went through this committee, they cut this. It went through this committee, they put this on it. It went through this committee, and eventually it made it, so.
Any other clarifying questions? So like I said, Catherine was traveling. It would be her sort of minor editing and then a signature to go with the packet for close of business Wednesday. Does anybody have any?
I'd be in favor of Catherine signing for the school committee in support. the framework that you have there,
Yep,
right?
yep,
and-
great, thank you. Yep. And just to add to, a separate letter came from Dr. Chu and from Principal Toomey. So we'd be adding ours to that.
Count
Looking
as a
for
motion, or does
Thank
it
you.
need to say motion?
A motion, please?
Motion to have Catherine sign on behalf of the school committee this letter of support.
Thank you, Sheena
Second.
and Bill. Any last thoughts? All in favor? Thank you, 6-0. Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll
Thank
let
you guys,
go.
appreciate the
We'll
time.
reach
If
out
anybody
and-
has questions, please reach out.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay, where are we? We are on the calendar, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I will share my screen. And Courtney can intro the,
Sure. So what you are seeing, I guess in rather small print,
sorry.
it's okay, is the first draft recommendation for the.
Shayna, can you expand that maybe? On the, just the window so that, it's just not full on the
What happens, right?
projector. Like the Zoom
It's
window.
The green button on the Zoom.
Just let Tom do it. Doesn't look like my Zoom at work, all right? Can't find the
Thank
corner
you.
window.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So this is the first draft of the 26-27 school year. A calendar committee convened over the last several weeks, with one being canceled because of our weather-related issues. But the committee included representation from administration from each grade level building, as well as the WEA and school committee. And the first thing that you might notice on this calendar is that we have a relatively late start to the school year. We are due to start on September 2nd, which we usually like to get started a little bit sooner than that, but Labor Day is late this year. So with that, the committee has recommended not to move forward with a 4-day Labor Day weekend, which we have enjoyed for the past several years, and just to look at it from a 3-day weekend. Also, this calendar continues to reflect no school days on the voting days that the town has asked us to observe, as well as some of the religious and the cultural days which have been identified by our community. The calendar continues to reflect 180 student days and 184 professional days for our staff members. This allows us extra time for professional development. We have 4 professional full days that are built into this calendar, as well as 2 half-days for professional development. And the district continues to believe that these are very important days to hold on to in terms of our professional development that needs to take place around curriculum instruction and any initiatives that might come from federal, state, or our own local initiatives. New to the calendar this year, we are recommending to build in 3 additional half-days, which we are referring to as collaborative data meetings, or CDMs. And we believe that these dates that we are recommending to go in October, February, and then at the end of the school year, I believe we have one in June or May, the end of May, are important to provide professional collaboration so that we are ensuring that students across our district are receiving the same learning experiences and expectations. Doesn't matter what school that they're in. If they're in a 2nd grade school at Robinson, it should match what we're doing at Miller and Nab. And so an opportunity for that calibration. It also allows time for our staff to analyze student data and to react quickly in terms of what is some tiered level of support that a student may need, whether that's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 resources. And so that's our big addition to the school calendar. Of course, all of this is pending some of our negotiations. As you all know, we are in negotiations with Teachers Union at this time, and in the event that anything were to change, then certainly we would come back and have those discussions. Also, the committee did want to recommend possibly a discussion that would take place at the school committee in regards to future obligations to have religious and cultural days observed. Nothing that would impact 26, 27, but there are many opinions that are part of the community from teachers and parent perspective that say that we have a lot of days off in our calendar. And knowing that any 1 or 2 significant snowstorms or weather events could wipe us out, it's just something into consideration. And so that is just brought to you with caution and respect, knowing that our community did a lot of work to recognize the religious and cultural days, but that's something that the committee might be able to discuss at a future time.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
I have a couple. On here you have provisional snow days indicated as a color, but they're not, I don't see them actually indicated on the,
You don't see them lit up?
yes,
Okay,
on the
I
calendar.
was just noticing that too.
okay.
Okay.
So those would be the 5 days that are following?
25.
21 to 25,
Yep,
is that?
yep.
Okay. And then the other piece of that is Juneteenth is a federal
I
holiday.
was gonna ask that too.
Right? Falling on a Saturday, I believe the practice would be that if it falls on it would be recognized on the 18th. Right now, it's a work day.
Or the following
or
Monday.
Monday. So,
Yeah.
but usually, a Saturday,
I don't believe that's the case for Juneteenth.
okay.
That we looked into that, and when it falls on a weekend, we do not have to observe it on the
Okay.
weekday.
Okay. So that may be something that ends up in a negotiation piece, so we just need to be aware when that happens.
I do think, that we'll look into it, but I
Yeah.
do believe that that's the way it's actually articulated in the
Okay.
federal law.
Okay,
But I think it's not the same as other holidays, but we'll double check.
okay,
Because it wouldn't, in that case, it's what the government says it's not a negotiations thing, it's a,
right.
what does the government
Okay.
say when that day is?
So that was just an observation I had
Yeah.
on that. I will say that those 5 provisional snow days, how many have we had this year so far?
3.
3, okay, so and this was a pretty bad year for it, so that's relatively,
It depends on when, I mean, last year, a lot of the weather hit us on weekends.
yes,
You know,
yeah, so, okay.
I mean,
still did have
it's
a
also tough. Last
weekend.
June, we lucked out and we had a beautiful end to our school year. The year
Yes.
before that, very oppressive heat.
Yes,
And so it
It
is
becomes
a
challenging.
challenge.
right. And I look at it from the operational standpoint of June 30th is awfully close there, right? So once you cross into July 1,
We
we
can't.
can't, right? So we start getting into remote days or any of those discussions. So those were just my observations on that. I fully understand that the calendar stretches because we have observations throughout the year, and I think that is appropriate myself, so.
Sorry, you figured it out.
I fully understand that it stretches that long
Yeah.
because of the observations we have throughout the year, and I feel that that is very appropriate to
Appropriate,
have
okay.
those.
Got it.
So,
I take that back, what I said about Juneteenth.
okay,
The federal government does recognize it the same way they do the others. So
Okay.
we should be,
Observing
we
it
should
on
be
the
looking at
18th.
that, yeah. State governments and federal governments, private employers don't have to do that, but
Okay.
I think we should be treating it the same way that it's all the
I
other
had the
holidays.
So the
question.
18th then would be a no school day?
Or the following Monday, potentially.
It is typically if it's on a Saturday, it's typically the Friday.
Friday.
If it's
If
on a
it's
Sunday, it's
Sunday, it goes
typically
to
the
Monday.
Monday.
Right.
The only other, and I know, I'm sure this was talked about, I feel for our PK through 5 parents with the 3 early release days in a row at the end of March, with Good Friday being early. Feels like a lot for our poor parents of our younger students to have them home in 3 half days in a row. And so I don't know if there's a thought or ability to move conferences the week before or something. I'm just throwing it out. It doesn't impact me anymore. I don't have my kid's older than that at this point, but that's a lot of half days for working parents to accommodate all in a row in the same week.
March. March is a brutal month, looking at this on paper right now for parents, but it is the nature of the schedule.
The conferences, and just for someone listening, the conferences are usually tied to marking periods, so it's moving them a week or two is not always possible. Right?
Correct. According to our contract that we have to have.
I wonder,
a certain amount of
I know
time.
there used to be past practice where there was a no school date for conferences, and I wonder why it got changed to half days. I was curious.
It was part of our current contract. It was part of negotiations to change from that schedule, mutually agreed to try this.
So 3 half days?
Well, that's
Two.
2
Two.
half
It's two.
days.
Oh,
It just
2 half
happens to be
days.
next
And
to
Good-
Good
and
Friday.
Good Friday. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And, I want to acknowledge the feedback from the calendar committee too about the holidays. I appreciate, Tom, your point. I think it was several years ago now that we had a presentation from students asking us to consider the observation of Diwali for a full day off, and that conversation about what the lived experience of a student who wants to celebrate with their family a cultural holiday that is not a no school day, and that tension between an excused absence and making up that work, really to me the way I've always looked at it was, if we were ever going to evaluate sort of pulling back from these observances, it would have to be in tandem with a evaluation of our homework policy and how we handle scheduling of work due or
Assessments.
Or-
tests, assessments, all of that for instances like that. And certainly, I think the way the way the committee has gone in approving these calendars year over year has certainly emphasized our commitment to inclusivity and cultural recognition. So it is a choice we are making each year by approving a calendar. I think it is an obvious sort of challenge to find a calendar that aligns with our values, gives staff what they need for professional development, but is also friendly to working families. And I think that's all summed up in one little document here every year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking at the half-days and the conferences to what we're talking about, it's too late at this point to look at that wording and contracts, right? We've already proposed things for the next iteration of teacher contracts, but it might be something we want to look at in the future is, can we make that verbiage around the end of terms a little bit more generic, that gives a little bit more flexibility, like whatever it says now within 1 week, could we say within 1 to 3 weeks, before or after, depending on scheduling, something that gives a little bit more leeway so that we don't have families stuck. Because again, three half days in a row feels really, and I am understanding that we have contractual reasons that we can't fix that now, but I think we should be thinking about that piece of it and how we could change some of the verbiage just to give us a little bit more flexibility in the future.
A question about the collaborative data meetings. First question, are there other area districts that employ this model, or do we know of? And then secondly, are we still meeting our student learning time?
We are still meeting our student learning time.
Okay.
And there are many districts that have a different format for professional development, such as the first Wednesday of each month that might be off, or, and so how they use their time for their professional development, whether that includes looking at data analysis. I'm not sure what they're doing, but I think that, you know, you'll find a variety of different professional development models throughout the state.
So, you know, we typically give this obviously 2 meetings, so it would come back on the 23rd. It gets another chance for public comment if now, as it's part of the packet, anybody in the community wants to share their feedback too. And then if you think of something after that you have a question on, please let us know.
Just a final note, I do think, however the calendar committee structured this, it doesn't feel like we're going any later this year. Like, the dates are basically the same that we're ending this year, even though Labor Day is significantly later. And so I think however you guys managed to fix that, it
Well,
seems like a
we-
good.
We lucked out where some of the religious holidays were
Fell on
falling
weekends.
on the weekends.
Yeah.
And so that would have been.
I was giving you guys good credit for the work that you did and making
Yeah.
the dates add up.
You know, and we would appreciate anybody taking a close look. I know that, Shana, you pointed out, you know, a missing piece earlier today when we didn't have something written on the back in terms of the kindergarten and pre-K start date. And Valerie, you did as well. So anything that you may see, feel free to email me directly. We'll update and include the highlights of the snow days, as well as look into Juneteenth.
I just noticed on page 2, the graduation date doesn't match that on page 1. So page 1 says June 4th, but page 2 says June 5th.
Well, that's tricky. Okay.
Sounds like the graduation dates at Westford Academy, since if it's raining, they change.
Yeah.
There's like 3.
Maybe the 5th is a rain day.
Yeah, there's 2
No.
rain days.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
There's Friday.
it's just a typo.
Yes. My only other comment, just in case I were to forget to say it next time, is that if we do approve this with the 3-day Labor Day weekend,
Yes.
that communication needs to be going out
Soon.
soon and often, just because I think families have gotten accustomed to that, and you
Sure.
would see probably 50% attendance on that Friday, just because people would be like, oh, I'm going away for my 4-day weekend.
We did bring that up as well within the committee. Certainly, we had members of the WEA there, and so we said, well, if this is the recommendation of the committee, the expectation is that staff members have also forward thought, and they're not going to have vacation plans that are already
Right.
going to impact that day.
But again, just, you know, because it is a change from the past couple of years, at least.
It's probably been that way for at least 25 years.
Oh, okay.
I feel it didn't change recently. There
It's
was,
been a
I
long
feel like
time.
I messed this up one year.
We moved the day to Tuesday, right? So there was there were 2 years where, because of the election cycle, instead of taking that Friday off, we had Monday and Tuesday
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's
off.
it.
That's right.
Okay.
'Cause I
But to
definitely
Lori's
can't
point,
something like it.
it's been a 4-day weekend for as long as I can remember.
Right.
Okay, so that is going to be a bit of a shock to systems, I bet. So just.
And it's just a recommendation at
Yeah,
this time.
no, and I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah, I think the communication piece, like, if we approve the calendar at the next meeting, we probably want to have building principals include that in their next weekly update. Calendar's been approved, please note,
Highlight, yep.
yeah, that
The
Labor Day is
changes.
changed this year.
Any changes?
Okay.
I don't know where the right place is for this comment, but I'm sitting here very uncomfortable that we're treating some of these holidays like an inconvenience, and I'm sure that has come up before, so I just need to get it off my chest. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we are thinking
It's a
from
balancing
multiple
act. Yes,
perspectives. you
yeah.
know, yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our next business item with the consideration from of a draft resolution in support of International Transgender Day of Visibility. There is, I'm going to hand this over to the policy subcommittee to give us a little bit of preview of what their discussion was there, and the draft wording was in the packet. So I think Jess, yeah?
Yeah, happy to introduce this, although I know that Wendy is here, and she also gave a lot of really great context at our meeting, so I don't know if we want to
Okay.
invite her to speak on that. But essentially, this is something that was brought to us by a community member, and it's a really great opportunity for us as a school committee to recognize this very important day of International Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st. Us stating this recognition really promotes understanding in the community for those that maybe aren't even aware that this is a day of that's important to think about. It certainly, positions us as a committee that cares about inclusivity for all students and helps to really reinforce our commitment to being a welcoming environment. So I think, any opportunity that we have to, help to educate and spread inclusivity is something that we should be thinking about, especially in this moment. So I think for this, we'd be asking you to take a look at this language, recommend any tweaks that you might have, and then I think it would be slated for a vote at our next meeting. But I think, as everybody has been paying attention to the news knows, this is a particularly challenging time right now for our transgender community members, both, in our local community and around the country. And so this is an opportunity for us to really inject some positivity.
Did you want to add anything, Wendy? I know it was a collaborative.
Yeah, I'd love to if I have a moment.
Just start by introducing yourself.
Wendy Gloyd, 16 Pleasant Street. I, on behalf of Westford LGBTQ Friends and Allies, brought this to the school committee and the subcommittee. I met with them last week. A lot of folks are asking why this year is important, and I think with all that is going on across the country, transgender young people and their families are experiencing a period of uncertainty and stress. Laws and policies are changing rapidly in many states, and these changes affect very practical aspects of life for young families, young people and their families. It affects where they can travel, where they feel safe visiting relatives, whether they can enter bathrooms, whether they can find gender-affirming care that is available to them. Many folks think we're insulated in Massachusetts, and that is unfortunately not the case. In Massachusetts, many transgender young people, 19 and under, and their families are now experiencing significant disruptions in getting gender-affirming care and medications, hormones that they might need in regular hospitals, and having to find alternatives and navigating federal funding pressures to the major hospitals in Boston. So a lot of our folks are having to find new resources in Western Mass that are not federally funded. So that leads to changing doctors, phone calls, confusions, changing rules, and I am better understanding what marginalized means through this, as I also work with Greater Boston PFLAG. Folks having to go to Western Mass to get this health care that they have come to need and rely upon. It really illustrates what being marginalized means, being pushed to the margins, being pushed to the edges of not being able to get what is important to them. So moments like this as a community, for Westford residents and students to see that the community sees them, respects them, and wants them to succeed. I know the school policy is also already very robust with the transgender and gender non-conforming student policy, which affirms every student deserving a safe, respectful, and supportive learning environment. This resolution would simply reinforce those principles and remind students of the commitments written in a policy that are also the values our community stands behind. So I know schools can't solve every social challenge that young people face beyond the classroom, but they can indicate something very powerful here: stability, dignity, and the message that every student belongs here in Westford. So on behalf of transgender and gender expansive folks, and especially students in the community, we learn from each other and our classmates what it means to build an inclusive community. And this affirmation shows leadership from this body and could carry enormous weight for our community.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Wendy.
Did you want to add anything? I know you, from the commission you serve on, or?
Yes, as a member of the Commission for LGBTQ Youth here in Massachusetts, we're celebrating later in that week. On Friday, there's going to be an event where they're tying it together with the early release of every year, one of the parts of the commission is to draft recommendations to the state government. And so that's going to be it's not the official release of that.
It's like an advocacy day, right?
It's
or
an
something?
advocacy day, and
Yep.
and so at first, when this first came up, I was like, well, wait, that's happening on Friday, but that's not the 31st. And so it's because there are a number of events that are scheduled at the State House. And so that Friday, that'll be taking place as well too, which I think it's great. And I think I do think that it's to what Wendy said, I think it's an important thing for us to speak out about.
Yep, great. And obviously, this will come back to our next agenda. So unless anyone has any other final thoughts to add tonight, we'll see this back on the 23rd.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Wendy.
Wendy.
Okay. We are next moving on to our business item for the Robinson School Building Committee update. I am going to share, so there's in the packet is a presentation from our last Robinson School Building Committee. So since you've last heard me ramble about this, a couple of milestones have happened. We have a architect team selected as part of that, remember that 13-person panel that the MSBA designer panel process. So that architect team is called Lavalle Brenzinger,
Yes.
which I affectionately use in email as L-B,
Yeah.
and just save them the mouthful. There's, and really this is like our whole team is now on board. And all the excitement and eagerness that we felt out of last annual town meeting is really now finally here.
Right.
It was a long wait, and now we're here. A couple points I just want to mention, since maybe this is someone else's entry point to this project. What got us here was that Robinson was identified as the school in our district with the most significant facility and educational needs. The MSBA agreed with that by looking at the whole state of what had been submitted as statements of interest. We also added the Abbott School to that statement of interest, or supplemented that. And as part of that process, we are currently in what's called a feasibility study. And so really it's a little bit broader than just what kind of repairs and renovations would make Robinson up to date. And we're able to broaden that into saying, how can we address Robinson's aging infrastructure and best plan for Westford's elementary configuration for the next 50 years. So we're going to be looking at the district-wide elementary enrollment. We're going to be contemplating what a different grade level configuration would look like, K-2 versus K-5. We're gonna look at different enrollment sizes, what maybe like a 400 student size school would be, a 700 student size school, and 1,000. Have I missed anything there?
No, and one of the reasons, again, if people who are kind of joining us now, one of the reasons why we're going through this process with the MSBA, which stands for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, is because they're partnering with us, will provide over 40% reimbursement for any project that we engage in, including
they
the
approve.
feasibility.
That they approve of,
That they approve of, but that's,
Just-
but
to be clear.
Yeah.
well, and I will say, but to that point, we have to meet all of their expectations. So it's not, we're not going off on a limb and then going back and hoping that they might like something. That's why it follows a very rigid timeline.
Right.
It follows very rigid expectations as to what is reimbursable and what is not reimbursable.
Right.
And the feasibility study that we are in right now, that will also be reimbursed.
Right.
Yeah.
And just a couple other level set things from conversations I've had with community members. One is that just because we say we have an architect on board, it does not mean we are designing our dream school.
Right.
That is the skill set that is required to do all of these, to do these steps inside this feasibility phase. Evaluating the conditions, kind of pricing out, because as a reminder, what got us here is that from our annual town meeting presentation, Robinson has about $9 million worth of needs. And so any repair plan or renovation plan would be a debt exclusion and would have some sort of ask to the community. And this architect team helps us vet all of those options out. We're gonna see a lot of like matrices help us figure out what's the best use and what's the long-term sustainability, what gets us some operational efficiencies.
And probably one of the most important things is for us to continue to remind people that although it is called the Robinson School Building Committee, and the focus on Robinson is what got us in the door with the MSBA because they recognized a great need there, our entire focus and the MSBA's expectation is evaluating how does any project impact all of our educational programming and all of our elementary programming. So we're going to be having multiple conversations about that and to say, okay, well, what do we think the future of elementary education looks like in Westford? And so any conversation that you're having about what might be happening in one region of town needs to be something that we can hopefully replicate elsewhere. And the impact, yes, to Valerie was saying, whether it would require redistricting or grade configuration, these are going to be massive conversations that we're going to be having, and we want to have as many people involved as possible. So we don't want people who might just currently live in the Robinson area to think that it's only impacting them, or more importantly, anyone who is not currently living in the Robinson district to think it doesn't impact them.
Right.
Because it really is going to impact all of our elementary schools, which is one of the reasons why we selected the OPM, the Owner's Project Manager Group, and the design team that we did, because they understood that we're not talking about just one impact in one section of town. We're talking about how can anything that we decide to do improve everything for our Westford elementary students.
So to bring this back to the seven of us, the first step of this is called the preliminary design program. It's gonna walk through all of these items you're seeing on the slide. And the educational program is actually a document that will be written and approved by this body in June of this year. And it's gonna describe what, we're gonna write about what the educational programming would look like for K-2, which we're currently doing, so that's kind of a capture of what that looks like. But we also have to go through the steps of what would it look like at K-5. So that document will be coming to this body over the next several months. Then this slide is a little bit more helpful to show where there's a lot of like kind of overlapping and parallel threads here. The Robinson School Building Committee has some things that are in their purview for votes. The school committee has some things that are in their purview for votes, so, and some of them obviously will dovetail. I also want to announce that we've picked a date for our first community forum. That will be on Thursday, April 9th. We're going to hold that at Robinson in person at 7 p.m. And we will be pushing out more information about that. What have I missed? I know I kind of jumped around.
I think just, again, reminding that you have responsibilities, so like, you're going to be focusing on the education planning, and you will need to approve what the enrollment decision is, while the Robinson School Building Committee has other responsibilities that they'll be tackling as well too. But so that's something that I know that you were already aware of, but I think it's important for anybody listening to the meetings understands that these conversations are going to be taking place in multiple places, and any changes in terms of grade configuration or districting is a school committee decision, and that you will be having significant conversations about that here.
Right, and to one of the steps there, I think it was for December of 26, the
Yep.
school committee endorsement. That's that's where the school committee would have ultimate, well, we don't like this plan because.
Yes, hopefully before that. if
Right,
you have
right, but
feedback,
the ultimate
yes,
is,
yeah, right.
if the committee comes back and says, well, we think that it should be a 1,000-student school that encompasses all of our elementary kids, well, then we can say, well, that's
Right.
really not
Your
where
concerns,
this
yes.
committee says that that's not, that we have concerns with that.
Sure.
Is there any concern about the documentation getting done in time? Because usually, obviously, we could have an extra meeting in the summer if we needed to, but just thinking that that timeline is very close to when typically the board would break for the summer.
Yeah, so I think all of these dates are being closely monitored by our owner's project manager, thank God, and are tied to submission dates and the MSBA board meeting dates, and like all of these have sort of background processes.
You've
But
got no choice to be on time.
yes,
And-
and certainly,
We're paying
you know,
you for it, too.
if we need to, if I need to, ask the committee flexibility for an additional date or something like that, yes, we
Yeah.
would certainly come to you.
And the nice thing is that we are still in a time when the state approves fully remote meetings, so, it's not as big
Sure,
of an
yes.
issue
Yep.
over the summer to pull us together for.
Like if you're in Indiana on the road with the band or.
Yes, because as it turns out, I'm doing that again.
Yeah, I figured.
And so I can't remember if you mentioned or not, but you can now expect to see
Yeah.
RSBC updates as a regular agenda
Okay,
item,
good, yeah.
for your meetings, and Vertex and
The Valley.
Valley,
Red
Redsinger, they will also come to many of your meetings to provide updates during those sections. Sometimes it'll just be me and Valerie, but sometimes they'll be coming as well too.
Yep, and our next Robinson School Building Committee is scheduled for March 17th. Those are sort of a recurring slot at 12 p.m. virtually, but they do get recorded and sent to WestfordCAT, and that will sort of be one of our kickoff meetings with our full team and that building committee. So I can certainly make a note to myself to share that recording with all of you so that you're kept in the loop.
Maybe that's something, and Kathy, maybe you can help us remember, maybe that's something we could have in our regular now standing update, is when the next RSBC meeting is, because those are public meetings as well too. And honestly, they've been taking place typically around noon, and you might have availability to chime in and listen to one if you wanted to. So if we have it listed there as well.
Yep. All feedback and input welcome, so.
Did you say March 17th?
Yes.
March 17th is the Robinson School Building Committee meeting at 12 p.m.
Okay.
The community forum is Thursday, April 9th, 7 p.m. at Robinson. And that'll be like this interactive workshop, so we're not planning to do that hybrid or virtual at that point. Meetings for community outreach after that will follow more of a presentation style, and we'll be able to do more of those hybrid. But this first one is really, interactive, right on this board, break out into small groups and stuff like that, so. Okay,
Motion.
all right.
Want a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Can you read the whole thing? Do you?
To discuss strategy with respect to Unit A collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. The committee is not returning to public session.
Thank you. And a second?
Jess can take it.
Jess, okay. And that's a roll call vote. Shayna?
Yes.
Jess? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.